Hello, today I'm going to show you how to convert a nice but relatively mundane sunset image into something that stands out a bit more, got some more color, more sharp, and something that you can be very happy with. This picture I took down at Glenelg today, it was a 5-image stitched panorama. I've already done all the boundary warping and shape for the panorama. It was 50 boundary warp and spherical shape. First step I'm going to do is crop the image. My intention was to focus on the jetty and have a little bit off to the left, but the people on the left here will not be in the final image. So I'm going to crop the image. First I'll straighten. I used the horizon on my grid on my camera to create this image. So I'll use that here to straighten the image. I'm not going to use any specific aspect ratio. I'm just going to crop down to what I think looks good. I don't want too much sand. I'm actually going to take a little bit off there. And my intention was to have about this much of the image showing. This bit on the left here is too underexposed anyway. So I think that there looks pretty good. I want some of that sharp shape on that cloud there. Yep, I think that looks pretty good. Every image will be different, so it's personal preference as to what you want, whether you want a square crop or a pano, or you want just your original camera settings, 2:1, 3:1. It's up to you, but I'm just done an open aspect ratio. If I was to print this image, I would probably do a 2:1 crop or a 3:1 crop. That's what a lot of photo printers, they have those sorts of settings. But here I'd probably do 2:1. Like that, and then just take off some of the left without damaging too much. So I'm just going to go back. Like that. Next step is to set white balance. Now, because this was the sunset was not a very bright, colorful one, I'm going to artificially adjust the white balance. And because I'm shooting in RAW, I can set whatever white balance I please without affecting the image too much. So I'm probably going to do about 8,000. That'll create it nice and yellow. It'll bring out some of the colors a bit more, make it more sunsetty. I can go up to as high as 11, 12,000, but I'll stick with 8,000 for now. Oops. I'll stick with 8,000 for now because I'm not intending to create what I saw. I want to create something I mentioned earlier, that I want to be more vibrant, something I'd be happy with. One thing I'm going to do before I proceed is just to crop out a little bit there. Those two people on the left there. Just so it's not a sharp shadow there. Next step is to start adjusting some of the colors. But before I do that, I'm just going to remove a couple of spots on the sand. Because they're a bit of a distraction. This here is just a piece of shirt or something that someone left. I'm just going to go into heal, select. That looks pretty good. And over here too, just a small piece of seaweed there. Just hide that. That looks okay. You don't want to be too picky with these, because often with the sand, you can start to get seams and things showing if you take out too big of spots. I'm going to leave that dark bit there. I think it looks pretty good. It's just some sand someone's kicked up. Okay, now I'm going to start adjusting highlights, shadows, and colors. This image was shot based on the sun over here. So I based the exposure around this. So it is a little bit underexposed in some of the dark areas, but that's actually pretty good because it creates a sort of silhouette effect. So we're going to go up on shadows. Not all the way, because I do want to keep some darkness there, but I think 80 is about what I want for now. I'm going to just go down on highlights because there's some slightly overexposed loss of detail there. There's no clipping, so that's good, especially in the dark area, in the light areas. Clipping's really bad on the sunset. The sun is actually set at this point, so there's not really an issue with heavily overexposed areas. Whites and whites don't really change because there's actually a lot of already light areas. And we don't want to be going up too much on blacks because I did want to keep some of that silhouette. Then again, it is personal preference. I prefer sunsets that focus more on the clouds and the sun rather than the objects in the image, like jetties or cars or rocks or buildings or whatever you've decided to photograph at the particular moment. I'm going to do contrast because that will again bring out the background, hide some of that foreground detail. Next step, I normally work downwards. Don't need too much clarity on this image because I do want to keep some of the softness. So I'm actually going to go only to 5. Very, very small adjustments. Vibrance, I definitely do want to go up on, but I don't want to go up on too much because it creates it too yellow. I want to keep it orange, so 25. And a little bit of saturation, just 10 for now. And we do have to turn some of the yellow down a little later, but that's no problem. That's one of the advantages of shooting in RAW. You can do whatever you want with white balance and color settings, especially white balance. I tend to shoot in JPEG. If I'm doing an image, I don't need to worry about color. For Instagram, quick little Facebook, or a holiday shot I could put on Flickr if I don't have a computer. Just shoot a RAW in camera and then just produce a JPEG in camera and then upload that. It's good enough. But for more professional look, you definitely do want to be shooting in RAW. I'm just starting to fiddle with the tone curve now. I'm not going too much up on lights or darks in general. I'm actually going to go down on darks because I do want some of that background detail to be further brought forward. Now, colors. Because this is a yellow sunset, we do want yellow in the image. Orange, sorry. We do want orange in the image. So I'm actually going to just bring those colors up. Because it's a very bright yellow, I'm going to adjust the hue to create it yellow. So, like this. I'm not really a person who adjusts hue a lot, but for an image that's colorful, you definitely do want to be doing that. Just playing with, that's one of the advantages of RAW. You can almost create any sunset that you want just from adjusting a few colors. Then again, this image is very, very yellow. I want to create it more orange. But I think that's actually starting to look pretty good. Because of the yellowness, it's probably an advantage to go up on white balance and then down on yellow. So I'm going to go up to 9,000. And then down on yellow. Yeah, that's starting to look actually quite good. It's all personal preference. I'm just showing you a method that I've developed and play with. It may work for you, but it works for me. Starting to look quite good now. There's no red in the sunset. I would have really liked a red reflection of the clouds. It makes it stand out really, really nice. I'm just going down on yellow, making it red, and then changing the red tone. But the advantage of RAW is that you can create any sunset you like. It's actually starting to look a little bit unrealistic, a little bit saturated, so I can adjust this vibrance and the saturation just to tune the colors out a little bit. But that's the keyboard shortcut on Lightroom is tab will hide all the menus that you've got permanently displaying, which just show the image. That looks not too bad. The advantage of the sun disappearing is that all these people on the bridge here are very nicely exposed and not washed out. Just to show how much it's changed, backslash will show you the image before you edited and after editing. It's looking very nice. Now from the bottom, because I want to really bring out the colors, I'm going to use the color profiles. I haven't been using them lately, but I feel that this image is one that definitely needs them. Adobe Standard is a little bit dull, I think. It's not very saturated, but these other modes definitely are. It's just a question of choosing which one suits the image. And I think it's natural. I think Vivid is a little bit too much, whereas Natural's a nice balance there. So I'm going to stick with that. Now because it's sharp, it's brought more saturation, I can turn down the tuning on these colors here, and I can again bring up the yellow because it's brought more orange, so I have to compensate and add more yellow back. I'm not going to touch the saturation on these, because then again I don't use these modes very often. So I think I'm just going to leave this for now. It is actually looking very nice. Just 5, I think. It's just a question of dragging. A lot of this Lightroom stuff, you develop a method you see and you change it to how you prefer it and still keep those basic techniques. I'm going to dehaze the image just a little bit, because if I do too much, it's taking away orange. Dehazing tends to remove blues in the day and add blues when the blue level has decreased, so it's almost a blue balance, reverse blue balance. So it's how much blue you want in the image in the night, in low light, and then how much you don't want. Or how much, yeah, it is a blue filter, so I tend to use dehazing in the daytime if I'm shooting in a very cloudy environment. I tend to dehaze the image, especially when you're shooting from a plane. Because you're high above the clouds, you always get hazing. So you dehaze. It helps bring out the colors some more. But you'll never get it perfect because you're shooting through 2 layers of glass. But it's just more of a help filter. But I'm not going to do too much. Only just 10. Just 10. Just enough to... just a little bit. Just to tune out some of that orange there. I'm not going to do any grain. And this image does not need vignetting. Detail, sharpness. I'm going to load my preset. This is the one I like to start with. 40 amount, 0.8 radius, 40 detail, 30 masking, 35 noise reduction. Because I'm on ISO 100, I do not need much noise reduction. I'm going to keep it at 35. I'm going to up the sharpness just a touch, just to bring it out a little bit. So 45, 50, 50. One thing I learnt the other day is sharpening is actually an illusion. It's adjusting contrast around pixels that creates a, in quotes, sharpening effect.
So that's why when you always sharpen, that's why when you sharpen an image, it always gets more contrasty, because that's exactly what the program's doing for you, is adding contrast. And if you over sharpen, especially in Photoshop, you can turn a image yellow and grainy very quickly. So that's good enough. 35 noise reduction, we don't need too much. The exposure settings aren't conducive to noise. A lot of phone cameras go to ISO 75, where there's virtually no noise at all. But they don't shoot in RAW, so you can't really bring those into Lightroom. The digital cameras, ISO 100 is pretty much the minimum. Although I have seen some high-end cameras that go to ISO 80. But 100 is fine. I always try and shoot in as low ISO as I can. I don't like shooting in high ISO, especially when it goes above 1000, because it gets a very, 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 very noisy image, especially if you're trying to shoot something that's moving. And when you shoot in landscapes, you always shoot no higher than ISO 250 to 320 if it's dark, and no higher than 200 if it's sunset or daytime. For split toning, I am going to do it just a little bit, just to get some more of that yellow out. But I don't need a lot. I don't really play with split toning because it's something I'm not familiar with. I don't use it because you can't pick colors. You have to pick them manually, so you can't do what you can do with white balance and click on the eyedropper, select a color, and that's what you go for shadow. So you click highlights, and it gives you this, but you can't do an eyedropper from the image to do your split toning. So that's my issue with it. I'm just going to remove some chromatic aberration because I did see some there. Forgot to mention it earlier. Do it now. Not too much. Just 3 and 3. That's enough. Oh, because I'm shooting an ISO 100 and 15mm. There's not really an issue with chromatic aberration. It's when you shoot long lenses where you start to get an issue. I think that's just about it for this image. And just to show where I started with this, looks okay. Photo lines up, exposure's pretty good. To this, which really starts to look like a proper sunset. Nice silhouetting on the bridge there, or the jetty there, and really bringing out the colours. I really do like this streak across the image. It's from a high altitude plane that flew over about half an hour before sunset and left this nice contrail. That really adds a nice effect to the image. So that's about it for sunsets. I'm just going to check for spots in the sky. There's nothing major there. It's all the clouds. Yeah, it's nothing. Maybe something over there next to this. No, that's just a cloud. So I think we're good for spots. Just remove those ones in the sand, just so it's not a distraction. Just one last touch is I'm going to use a graduated filter and darken that sand a little bit there. Dark images don't really need a lot of graduated filters on them, based on my experience anyway. Just going to darken it a touch. Not much. 0.3 stops. Let's turn up contrast a bit. Let's darken it. Not too much. Maybe just get it a little bit warmer to match the sky. 10. Let's go down on blacks actually. Almost you could hide the sand. Go down like that. It's almost
it's too much. So I actually do like that, hiding the sand without using exposure. Just darkening it with contrast. Oops. Oh. Be careful with graduated filters. Playing with it there. And I think that's about it for sunsets. I hope you've got something out of that. And hopefully it can help develop your Lightroom proficiency in turning relatively nice but mundane images into something that's a lot more spectacular and is more than suitable for publication on Flickr, 500px, Tumblr, whatever you prefer to use, for displaying your work or submitting in competitions for online stuff, camera clubs, newspapers, all sorts of stuff. This is definitely an image you could submit into a competition. I think the judges would very much like an image like this. Very colourful, nicely exposed. They would have seen that you've put a lot of work into post-production, but you haven't overdone it. It's very easy to overdo post-production and try too hard, but this is certainly not the case for this image. And the most important thing when you're trying to create a sunset is that you shoot, when you're out shooting, that you have the composition as to what you like. And even if the image looks mundane when you put it onto a computer, you can use the power of RAW and Lightroom and Photoshop to bring out the colors. And just one final thing is I'm going to edit out that, because it's a big distraction. Don't need to do too much, just going to take a bit next to it, line up the horizon. And that's the finished image. I'm going to publish that on Flickr right now. And hopefully I get some interest from it. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. One final thing is I'm going to remove that marker there, because it's a distraction. Because a lot of this image is very much similar colors, it's very easy for the spot removal tool. No problems. Now that I look, I'm getting lineup issues here. So I'm going to have to just play with it a bit and just do something that looks... Actually, I'm just going to leave that because it's not really noticeable from a distance. So I hope you enjoyed my lesson on using Lightroom to bring out sunset photos. Hope you got something out of it. Please stay tuned to my channel for further photography, travel, and other opinion related videos. Thanks for watching.